In the story of One Piece, among the three types of devil fruit that exist, we have seen two of these types have awakened abilities, going beyond what is usually expected of these powers. We have seen the various diverse properties of what a awakened a paramecia fruit user can do, and we have seen the sometimes possessive and other times overwhelming properties of what a Zoan fruit user is capable of. However, we have never seen what an awakened Logia can actually do. Over the years, I have been told many a thing, and I have said many a thing as to what a awakened Logia could possibly be. However, today, I believe I have come across a definitive answer as to what a awakened Logia actually is. So, what do Logia type devil fruits do? Well, Logia type devil fruits grant their user the ability to become, control, and generate a occurrence that happens in nature. So, for example, becoming lightning, becoming fire, becoming a forest, or becoming darkness. Another power of these users is that by becoming this chosen element, they can allow attacks to bypass their bodies harmlessly, allowing them to simply regenerate from the damage with no pain felt. This power has its caveats because it's not technically the same for every Logia fruit user. We have special cases like Blackbeard, and then we have a special case in Caribou, who more so absorbs things into himself as opposed to letting them bypass his body. But with that being said, the majority of the fruits allow you to harmlessly bypass damage by converting your body into the element that you generate. With that being said, I think therein lies the Logia awakening. The Logia abilities allow you to generate a substance that occurs in nature, correct? The awakened ability of the Logia is simply becoming what you generate. Now, you may be asking, well, they do that already. Aniru can become lightning, Ace can become fire, etc., etc. But no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that when a user freely generates something from their body, they can then imbue their consciousness within that generation. So essentially, you are, as the Logia user, are in two different places at once or multiple places at once. This reflects how these occurrences happen in the real world, because in the real world, a wildfire can break out in multiple places, can it not? A thunderstorm can happen in multiple places, can it not? A forest can exist in multiple places in the world, can it not? So, with this in mind, a Logia can exist in multiple places at once. Now, you may be asking, well, we've never seen this happen in the series, but we have, with one Logia user in particular. Karasu, commander of the North Army of the Revolutionary Army and user of the Logia type devil fruit known as the Soot Soot fruit, is potentially the only awakened Logia fruit user in the series, because what I was mentioning earlier is displayed by him, notably in two different chapters. The first one is the End of Dressrosa, which is chapter 794, in which we see Sabo riding atop one of his soot crows and having a conversation. However, one of the crows responds to him as he is talking. We see this again in chapter 1084, in which the Revolutionary Army has invaded the Holy Land in an attempt to save Bartholomew Kuma. We see Sabo again talk to one of Karasu's soot crows directly and address it as Karasu, as if he's talking to a person. Then he hands Karasu the keys and the mission commences. With that being said, this is what I'm talking about. Karasu is the crow. Even though this isn't his main body, he has imbued his consciousness into his generation, into the soot that he produces, which then, much like how you can have occur in multiple places in the world, he now too can be in multiple places. And I think this extends to all Logia because it is more of the Logia's nature to replicate how these occurrences happen in nature. They don't happen in one place in particular. They have the potential to happen all over the world at the same time. So much like the occurrences in nature, the Logia fruit user can be in multiple places across the world at the same time. So we are seeing this in a very subtle form with Karasu, but there's no telling what we will see in the future. But now that we've covered what Logia Awakening actually could be, we're going to discuss what it isn't, just to sweep up any questions you might have in the comments, because I've been around for a long time and I've heard many a thing. So, number one, is Logia Fruit Awakening affecting the environment either temporarily or permanently? No, we've seen this from several users in the series at this point. Ace does it for the first time when he goes to Drum. It stops snowing in Drum upon his arrival. So, in being the user of the Flame Fruit, he has an effect on the environment and he stopped it from snowing. Then, when we go over to Punk Hazard, we know that the island has been affected via Akiinu and Aokiji fighting. This is just because they were expressing their abilities in a singular location over an extended period of time. That is why the location known as Punk Hazard is changed permanently on both sides of the island. It has nothing to do with either user in question being an awakened Logia Fruit user. We see this again too once Green Bull arrives in Wano. He changes Udon from a wasteland into a lush forest permanently by just walking through and using his abilities on King, Queen, and the various other remnants of the Beast Pirates. This is seen again in Yamato's cover story, in which the land of Udon is still a lush green forest. So I say that to say, any Logia Fruit user can potentially affect their environment. Theory number two, is it possible for a Logia to turn into a raging calamity spiraling out of control if they awaken their Devil Fruit? This is not true, because this would imply that Logias contain some sort of living essence within them. However, in the case of the Paramecia type Devil Fruit class and the Logia type Devil Fruit class, they are not living beings. They are ideas and potentially experiences, and they give the power to wield those ideas and experiences. They are not living creatures. Zoans, on the other hand, do contain the essence of living creatures, which is why we see several users fall to the entity within the fruit, namely the jailer beasts. The beast within their devil fruits now pilots their bodies because they were failed awakenings. This is not the case when talking about the other two fruits, because there's nothing within them that's living. This too is why you can feed Zoan type devil fruits to objects, because now said object is a living thing, which means in being a flesh and blood creature, it can also die and therefore have the potential to put the fruit back into the cycle of rebirth. This would not happen to a Paramecia or a Logia if you fed of a fruit, because if an object could eat a Paramecia or a Logia type devil fruit, it wouldn't be alive. It would simply be a magical item, and therefore it could not die. So that is why Zoans are the only ones who can be eaten by objects. Now, theory 3, does a big deity-like state indicate a Logia awakening? Sadly, no, because this is one of my theories that I have held on to for a number of years. I even made some shorts about this on the channel, but no. This is implying that what Eniru does at the end of Skypiea, in which he turns into a giant body of lightning called Amaru, I was under the impression that that too could be an awakening, seeing as how that seems to be a deity-like state, and he does have a Hagoramo in that state. However, he thinks himself a deity, therefore he is simply dressing the part, he is presenting himself larger than life. This is not even unique to him, because Green Bull, when fighting Yamato, Momonosuke, Raizo, and Shinobu, does something similar. He becomes a big forest man. He becomes a big body representation of what he generates. So, no, this is not an indication of awakening. It's just an expression of the ability meant to overwhelm and intimidate the opponent. With that being said, that's all I have for you today. Give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. What?